Hi there. Today when I was deciding what to offer to you as a tutorial for Lightroom, I decided maybe I should just start being very systematic and work my way through the panel. So I'm in the Develop module, and today we're going to work on the Crop tool. The Crop tool is right here in this first position of the menu. Click on that and it brings up these guidelines for cropping. This happens to be the rule of thirds, which is very, very common and a strong compositional element that we want to have in our images. Now this particular image, I was holding the camera over my head and taking a photo, and so I got a lot of the countertop in this image that I don't want there, and I also need to straighten it out. There are a couple of ways I can do that. First, I can go to Angle and use the slider. So if I click on the middle dot and slide back and forth, that gives me the options of tilting the image and cropping it to make it straight. And that looks pretty good, so I would leave it there. The other thing I want to get rid of is all of this on the side. Now I could take it into Photoshop and fill in with the white background, but for our purposes, I'm just going to pull this in. And there I have it. And that leaves my element of my stamp pad and stamps on the rule of thirds, which I do want. What I don't want is to have just the tips of the paper cut off here. I could pull it down so that it looks more intentionally cropped like that, and that still works. Pull this down. It's starting to get a little tight, but it does work. But let's look at some of the other options. Actually, let's look at a different way to straighten, and that would be to go right next door here. Instead of using the slider, we're going to use this little tool here. It looks like a little bubble level. If you click on that, it gives you the little icon and a crossbar. So put the crossbar right at the edge of the line that you're going to use for your level. Click and hold down. It gives you a dot, and then it gives you like a little line with another ending dot for getting that level. And so you'll put your ending dot farther down on the line, hover there, and then release your mouse, and that straightens the image for you. And again, I'm going to pull in on the side here to get rid of the countertop and pull it up just a bit. And actually I'm pretty okay with that. I've got my paper on one crosshatch, I've got the stamp and ink pad on another, and so this is acceptable to me. But let's take a look at some other things that we can do with the crop tool. So by clicking on the O button, it will cycle through other options for cropping. So when I click, I get this double diagonal grid, and when you use this grid, you want the important elements on each of these, or some of the crosshairs, and maybe even right in that center area. By moving my image around a little bit, I could kind of make it work, but it's not ideal. So I'm going to hit O again, and this gives me the golden triangle diagonal. Now this looks pretty good because I've got some important elements along this main line, and then this shorter line brings us to that important element, as it does here. However, ideally with the golden triangle, you want your important elements to be in the large peak area of the largest triangle. So we have a large triangle here, I want an important element here, or I want an important element here. Now to change the main diagonal line of this crop tool, I hold down Shift and hit O again, and it alternates it to going the other direction. In fact, this seems to work a little bit better because now the edge of the paper is right along this main diagonal line. The shorter lines come up, and although there's an element here and there's kind of an element here, it's really not ideal because I want the main topic of my image to be within the peak of the largest triangles. So let's hit O again and find out what's next here. We've got another grid that Again, you want your important elements near the crosshairs. And clicking O one more time, it brings us to the golden spiral. Now, in this position, it doesn't really work because you want your main topic right within the heart of the spiral. And for me here, it's kind of out. I would have to move my image such that the pine cones were in the main area, and I would have to do a lot of juggling around with it. So I don't really want to do that. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to hit O. I'm sorry, I'm going to hold down Shift and hit O again because I can get a different spiral, a different angle. So holding Shift down, hit O, and it pulls the heart of the spiral down to the bottom. Doesn't really work for this image either, so I'm going to hold down Shift, click O. That's a little better. It's near the center of the paper and the pen. That's not too bad. But I'm going to hold Shift and click O again. This time it gives me an elliptical spiral. Again, this doesn't really work for this image, so I'm going to cycle through by holding down Shift, clicking O. Again, it's not quite right. Again, this isn't too bad. The heart of the spiral is on the stamp pad. I can follow the line around. All of my main elements are within the spiral until I get to the paper. And I've cut it off a little bit there. It's not bad, but I think we can do better. So hold down Shift, hit O, and again, it gives me the elliptical in another area. Hitting O again while holding down Shift, this is the spiral I'm looking for. It gives me this main spiral right over the topic of my image. And by stretching this out just a little bit, it gives me a little more breathing room. So I've got my stamp pad and stamps within the heart of the spiral. When I follow this line around, all of the important elements are within the line. And I can adjust it just a little bit. This pine cone was chopped off a little bit. Although now I see a little bit of my countertop showing there. So I'm going to leave it like that. So I'm okay with that. And if I click O again without holding down Shift, it gives me ratios for 2:3, 5:7, 4:5, and so on. And clicking again, it gives me just a general grid. Clicking again, we're back to the rule of thirds. Now, if I want to change this, the way I've got it now, I'm going to stay with a 4:6 or 2:3 ratio. But if I want to change that, I can go up to Settings, click on that, and it gives me a menu, a drop-down menu of all kinds of things. I have constrain aspect ratio clicked, so that's why it's keeping it in the 4:6. If I unclick that, I can change my crop into any shape that I want that works for me. And so that's an option. I personally want to keep it at 4:6, so I'm going to go back to Settings and recheck that. The other thing that I can do while I'm there that I want to show you is to rotate the crop aspect. Let's say I've taken a bunch of images of this and I really need a vertical image and I didn't take one, and when I turn the image it doesn't really work, but by rotating the crop aspect, it will rotate it in this fashion, and I can adjust it accordingly to whatever I think I might want for a vertical image. Now you lose a lot of pixels doing that, so I don't recommend it unless you absolutely need to, but it is an option and I wanted to show it to you. So we're going to go back to Settings again and change the crop aspect back to what we had before. And I think that's about where we were, that. And let's see, I think that's all I wanted to show you with the crop tool. We've changed the angle 2 different ways. We've gone through all of the grids and shown you what we can do with them. We've rotated the crop aspect. We've released the constrained crop aspect. And so I think you should have a pretty good handle on how to use that tool now if you didn't before. To release that, you just click on it The grid goes away, and here you have your image in a nice rule of thirds or golden spiral crop. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please ask, and I will see you next time with the clone tool. I think is going to be up next. So thanks for watching, and let me know if there are any questions.